Welcome to the Daily Review. This is Razak, Senior Trading Strategist here at CMTrading. And today is March 28th, 2024, and today is Thursday morning. So looking at the highlights of the day, we're watching Apple rebound nicely. But first, looking at today's major economic events. So we start out the day at 2:30 South African time out of the United States. GDP, gross domestic product number coming out. And then at 4 p.m. also from the United States, we have a pending home sales, which is a really important number for interest rate decision, and a revised UoM Consumer Sentiment number coming out. Now looking at the various markets, starting out with the Forex symbols, the US dollar advances versus the euro, the GBP, and the Australian dollar. And as we look at the indices, the Dow Jones gains nicely, almost back to its highs, while the NASDAQ remaining mostly unchanged. Looking at commodities, gold and oil pivoting higher as well. And as we look at the stocks, NVIDIA continues to sell off, while ALCOA also bouncing nicely on the upside. And lastly, looking at cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin gains. So let's take a look at the markets and see what we can expect from today's trading. Okay, so here we go. First with the Euro USD. And the dollar's getting stronger at 107.90-ish level. That was that point. That was the support level of 108. Now, I can't say it's breached it big time. It's only 9 pips, but it is trading lower, and we may see ourselves retracing further to 107 down the line. Okay, it's only about 91 pips, but again, it is a move on the downside. Now, looking at the GBP USD, also on the downside, hitting almost that 200-day moving average. If it does hit it, that's important. I want to keep that on my radar as well. And looking at the Australian dollar, also pivoting lower as well. Now, looking at the Japanese yen, all of a sudden it just stops. Doesn't make new lows, but this is what I was talking about. It's the leading indicator. It led us all lower versus the dollar. I mean, it's like 2 or 3 days later that the euro, the GBP, and the Australian dollar are affected by how the Japanese yen already from the beginning of the week already went lower. So it's ahead of the curve, as we've seen many times before. Now looking at commodities, gold getting stronger and moving and pivoting higher to 21.96. Now, okay, all intents and purposes, we're on our highs. Yes, we spiked up to 22.40-ish level, but that didn't sustain it. Okay, so we're about $50 from our all-time record highs, if you'd like to call it, but in all intents and purposes, this is highs. Okay, so if we break out higher, then we will close in that gap as well. So keep that in mind as this continues to pivot higher. Looking at crude oil, also on the upside. Okay, not big, but it is solidifying, and it's forming a wedge formation. This is where it's really important, because once that makes that wedge formation, that's when it usually breaks out either up or down, so keep that in mind. Now looking at the U.S. markets, Dow Jones rebounds back to 40,153, 42,000, 40,200, 300-ish levels, the highs. We're only about 150 points away from it. I mean, but we recovered big, okay, over 400 points. So that's a big recovery for the Dow Jones. Now looking at the NASDAQ, it didn't move higher, didn't pivot higher. So this is what is interesting. If we could look at something like ALCOA, it's getting stronger. Okay, if we look at a weekly chart of ALCOA, it's coming and closing in on that resistance level. And so in old school kind of economics, ALCOA makes aluminum. ALCOA is a steel company. It makes a lot of type of metals and is involved with the shipment of metals. This is where it starts. Okay, this is why ALCOA is so important to me, to kind of see where in the food chain this is actually starting. And usually when these type of companies go, then the rest of the market goes subsequently. So keep that in mind. Now looking at the Bank of America, also gaining nicely on the upside. Now on the flip side, this is how rotation happens. One time it's this that's going to go higher, and it means this is going to go lower. And sure enough, NVIDIA did that. NVIDIA continued to sell off over 20 points yesterday, back to that $900 level. And so there is that circulation in the market once again. Now, looking at Microsoft, didn't do much. Okay, so it's not really trading that much. There's no impetus for the NASDAQ to hit all-time record highs. And that's exactly what's been happening. Looking at Facebook also did the same thing. Now, looking at Bitcoin, it's gaining nicely and sustaining itself above 70K. It dipped again below that 70K, but then recovered right afterwards. So it's relatively still strong. Okay, if you guys are day trading it, great. Okay, but don't position trade it because it's going to be very difficult to do that. This is Razak. I want to wish you guys a great trading day. Thank you.